The news we've all been waiting for, Luka Bogavac is a Tar Heel.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Saturday. It's May 31st, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Special shout out, what's up to the everydayers who are here with us, all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, all our Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. Great news coming out on Saturday morning from ESPN's Jonathan Givony is that Luka Bogavac is coming to North Carolina, as he is told by Bogavac's agent Misko Raznatovic. And so that was the first place that I saw report the official news on Saturday morning. Of course, it happened on a Saturday morning, as we all expected it to do. Great news there. Hilariously, behind the scenes, if I can, I'm leaving for family vacation literally tomorrow. So I've been spending the entire past week double recording all of this week's shows for Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On College Basketball and next week's shows. So of course, I've done all these shows for next week. I've talked about Luka Bogavac a lot in it, like hedging the bets of like, hey, but if we get Luka Bogavac news by the time you're listening to or watching this, and of course, here it happens. Ultimately, I would rather it happen while I'm still home before I leave. But boy, oh boy, did I have a lot of things I needed to get done today. But nothing is greater news than this, but it's great news at the worst possible time. In fact, this is my second vacation that Carolina has landed somebody last year, as Cade Tyson committed while I was gone as well. Also, while we're talking right out of the gate, this is not the only time we'll go live today. We will go live after Carolina's baseball game against Oklahoma tonight. Critical game that starts in just about an hour. So great timing there. All right. North Carolina lands Luka Bogavac. We're going to talk about his game. We're going to talk about his eligibility. That's one of the big questions surrounding this. Some takes from me. We'll have my scholarship chart to look at, or, if you're listening back to this later, welcome into you. You can find it on my Twitter feed as well. We'll talk about my expectation of starting lineup and depth, and is Carolina now officially done? All of that coming up today. Let's start with the eligibility, because that was my big question, and that was the big question for a lot of people. Like, I've got a whole bunch of tweets and texts and all that asking about it. So here's what I am told from a source that is wildly trusted close to this situation, is that hopefully, that's the big word there, they will get him for 2 years of eligibility, but that it's going to be basically a long process of determining that. So right now, on the scholarship chart, you'll see when I pull it up here in a little bit, I have classified Bogavac as a junior with 2 years of eligibility, but just take that as temporary for now, pending confirmation, right? So that's where we're at with it right now. Little bio blast on Bogavac. I'm assuming you know these things, but in case you don't, let's have it. 21 years old right now. His birthday's September 20th, so he'll be 22 when the season starts. That's great high-level leadership for Carolina from somebody that's been playing pro in Europe for a while already. He is Montenegrin from Montenegro, which, if you're not sure where that is, there's Italy, kind of like the boot, and there's the Adriatic Sea just to the northeast of that, and Montenegro is just on the other side of that, like right by Croatia, basically. And so that's where it is. There's been a lot of conversation about his height. When we initially heard about Luka Bogavac, there was conversation that he's 6'5". Others since have said, no, he's like 6'3", whatever. Well, officially listed on the league website at 195 centimeters, which, hilariously, we are feet and inches. I mean, it makes me think of that Nate Bargatze, George Washington skit on SNL. If you don't know what I'm referencing there, good grief, stop watching me right now and go check that out. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. But that roughly translates 195 centimeters into 6.4 feet. That doesn't mean 6 feet 4 inches. It's like 6.4 feet. So like 2/5 of another foot. And then 200 pounds. He's played 4 seasons in ABA Liga, and the last 2 of those for SC Derby. Stats-wise, this past year, 24-25 for Bogavac, 14.9 points, 3.6 boards, 2.3 assists, 45% from the field, just shy of 40%, 39.9 from three. Yes, thank you. And 87% at the free throw line. He had in his final 15 games of this year, had 19 or more points in 8 of those. Love seeing him rounded out that way, including a season high 27 back on April 25th, if you go back and look at all of his stats and data. So let's just get into some of my thoughts that I've collected with this. With it. And I see, by the way, there's quite a few comments already coming in. If you got questions or observations, go ahead and drop those in the chat and we'll try to get to some of those later. I want to say right now, right out of the gate as we get going, the offseason doesn't always happen in the same way at the same time with the same pace. Sometimes you get guys quickly. Sometimes you get them slowly. Sometimes it's spread out, right? Like Carolina got quite a few guys even before the timing of last year when they got Cade Tyson in April. And there are oftentimes when guys come in later in the cycle. And so to all of you who have been worried or freaked out or concerned about landing or not landing someone and ultimately signing the death certificate of the Tar Heels, this is why I have been preaching patience. That there were all sorts of possibilities out on the horizon. Yes, you did not land this critical wing that you needed out of somebody in the transfer portal. Now you've got guys that can play the wing from the transfer portal in Jaron Stevenson, in Jonathan Powell from West Virginia, but maybe not that critical guy that we want Carolina to have. And now we have it. So I know, I get it too, because I get worked up about these things like, got to get somebody. But man, as much as you can stay patient, and trust that eventually it's going to get there, and it ultimately will. And I've kind of said that all along of just be patient. Just be patient. Things will happen. Speaking of that timing, although things could continue to take longer, I am so glad that Carolina gets Bogavac before the calendar is even flipped to June. I mean, it's by one day. Tomorrow's June 1st. That's wild. But they get it done. And that's great news, because now what does that mean? The more time you have with the solidification of this roster, the more time you have for chemistry building, the more time you have to figure out who are we going to be? Because let's be honest, the best teams in this day and age are, yes, the teams that can stay intact from year to year, which that's not what Carolina's done. Seth Trimble, James Brown, that's it. Obviously you have Zayden High, who played 2 years ago, but from last year's roster, just those guys. But it's also then the teams that can come together as quickly as possible to be a unit. And even then, sometimes it takes till December, January to really figure out who are we. And so I love that Carolina gets this done here in May. There's also been a lot of concern about Carolina's scoring punch. Nobody that's really averaged double-digit figures. Well, here comes Bogavac, who's done it at not like the NBA type of level, but at a higher level than college basketball. And so I'm not saying he's going to necessarily come in and be Carolina's leading scorer. That could be Kyan Evans. That could be Henry Vasar. Who knows? It could be Caleb Wilson. Although he's not just like, hey, I'm coming in walking bucket kind of guy. That's not necessarily him. He'll be the leading scorer sometimes. But Bogavac brings with him immediately some of that type of pedigree that I think a lot of the fan base has been concerned about, of like, oh my gosh, where's the scoring come from? And so what this does with somebody who has scored 14.9 points a game with big boys is that it gives you yet another piece of the personnel that is going to make it that much more difficult for the opposition to game plan against. So you've got to worry about Vasar in the post and Caleb Wilson, what he might be able to do. Seth Trimble getting out in space and running. You've got to worry about Kyan Evans being able to light it up from three, because now you've got multiple guys who are 40% shooters in the starting lineup, right? Like that's always a concern in this day and age, is do we have enough shooting? One of the things I said when Carolina landed Kyan Evans as their point guard, somebody that was over 40% from three last year, is that in my mind, whether or not Seth Trimble rebounds from three, which I think he will. I think a lot of his regression came post-injury last year. But now with somebody at the one and likely at the three who can both fill it up from outside, that stretches the floor. And what does that do? Here's all these running lanes for Seth Trimble to do what he does best. And oh, baby, does that make me salivate. I absolutely love that. So immediately, Luka Bogavac brings scoring credentials that will help change the way people feel about this thing. All right, several more things I want to talk about with what some takes on this, what Bogavac brings. We're going to bring up the scholarship chart, look at that, and several other things as we keep going with this. All that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. Tonight is Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Who's kidding themselves? Though we ain't watching that. We're watching the Diamond Heels take care of Oklahoma. But every night delivers highlight-worthy performances in the NBA, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on this action with FanDuel than right now. FanDuel makes it easier than ever to stay in the game, both before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans like you have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. In that Game 6 tonight, Eastern Conference Finals, Pacers trying to close this thing out at home. They're favored by 3.5 over the Knicks. Last thing they want to do is to let that game or that series get back to Madison Square Garden. So it's going to be really interesting tonight. That's at 8 o'clock. Maybe the Tar Heels game will be nearly over and you can catch the second half. Are you new to FanDuel? Now's the perfect time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, one of the other things is with Luka Bogavac is, man, I just, from a positional fit, this is great. We were hopeful for somebody like a Jameer Watkins or a Darion, Darion Reed. I got something stuck in my throat. I got real choked up about Darion Reed. What are we doing? About Darion Williams, who winds up ultimately at NC State. Didn't get any of those guys. But man, you know what's interesting is on Monday show, it's going to be a mailbag episode. And just a quick primer behind the scenes. Somebody asked me on that about, hey, with not getting Drake Powell back, is that an opportunity for maybe Carolina to get some more certified scoring punch at the three? And that's what part of what Luka Bogavac brings is more guaranteed scoring. That is not necessarily part of Drake's game in and game out. He'll do that sometimes, but Bogavac will bring it more consistently. And so from what he's able to do, man, that positional fit that he brings is massive. And with that, because you've got a couple other guys who can play the three, it's going to continue to allow Carolina so much lineup versatility where you could go Bogavac at 6'5", you could go Jaren Stevenson at 6'10", 6'11" at the three, right? You could go really big, put Bogavac at the 2, right? And just lots and lots and lots of possibility there. Another thing that I love he brings is experience, right? As we said out of the gate, he is going to be 22 when this season starts. He's got a 4-year professional league. He's been playing over there in ABA Liga. And so, you think about, you remember that Cormac Ryan was like 57 a couple years ago when he played for the Tar Heels. Bogavac isn't quite that old, but he brings some of that same level of professionalism to what Carolina will do. I think he comes in, and if my imagination, and I don't know too much yet of his temperament or his personality. Like, will he bring leadership qualities? I'm not sure about that. I need to find out more and investigate some of that. But he will certainly bring a level of professionalism that will force guys to level up their own if they want to match what he's able to do. And so that's important too. We talked about how good a shooter he is. He also does it from the free throw line. And with what I project to be Carolina's starting lineup, we'll talk more about that in a second. Carolina's 1, 2, and 3 point guard, shooting guard, and small forward all shot last season over 80% at the free throw line. Kyan Evans was 85.2. Seth Trimble, a massive leap up to 82%. And Luka Bogavac, 87%. So think about end of game scenarios with that trio in your backcourt and on the wing. If you can get any of those three the ball, you feel like you're in great shape if the other team is having to foul to extend the game, because you've got 3 80+% shooters. Really, really good stuff. And with Bogavac, you've seen it. I hope you've watched some of his tape or game film, highlights, whatever. You've seen he can get out and lead the break. He can get a rebound, rip and run, and get off going. And then one last thing I say before we pull up the scholarship chart is one of the big pieces of conversation with Jim Tanner coming in is his international acumen. Yes, everything he's done with NBA guys, but also with international connections. And now we're starting to see that. You've already got Henri Vesar, who is an Estonian. Yes, he was playing in college basketball, but now you get a guy that's been playing in Europe. And so you just start to see some of that. And if I'm a European player and I see my guy Bogavac over there balling out for Carolina, then I'm like, oh, hey, Jim Tanner, what's up? Let me come. And I know there are a lot. I feel like college teams are turning to international ranks a lot right now in an effort to continue to get old and stay old. And so it's not just Carolina. Let's admit that, but it isn't a bad thing. And part of this is, I read an article today. I won't say what publication it was from or what source it was from, that said this has been a week-long pursuit. And that is, I apologize to that person. I'm calling that out, but I'm not doing it by name. This has been much longer behind the scenes than a week-long pursuit. His name surfaced, yes, maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, but Carolina's pursuit of Bogavac has been going for a while. They've been doing the work to try to get him to Carolina, and now that comes to fruition, and that's great news. Okay, for those of you watching, what I'm going to do right now is pull up the scholarship chart. If you're listening to this, no worries. I've got it posted on my Twitter feed. You can find it there as well. I've also posted it in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord if you want to go find it there. But you see the scholarship chart right now. As a reminder, my source tells me that Carolina is hopeful that they will have 2 years of eligibility for Bogavac. That is not guaranteed at this point, but that's what I am working off of right now. So you can see on the chart, I have classified him as a junior with 2 years of eligibility, which makes Carolina's junior class massive. It's funny. There was a point this offseason when Carolina, after Elliot Cadeau left, didn't have a single junior on the roster. Also, right now, I do not have Van Allen Lubin on the roster. I should say that. I know he said initially he was hopeful to enter the portal, but ultimately come back. But it doesn't seem right now like that's going to happen. So I don't have him right now on the scholarship chart. But Seth Trimble, the lone senior for this year. And then you've got a 5-person junior class of Bogavac, Kyan Evans, Jaron Stevenson, Jaden Young, and then Henri Vesar, who is a redshirt junior. 3-person sophomore class, James Brown, Zayden High, who's a redshirt, and Jonathan Powell coming over from West Virginia. And then the incoming freshman class, you've got Isaiah Dennis, Derek Dixon, and kind of what most see as the crown jewel of this recruiting freshman class is Caleb Wilson. And so what you start to notice about that is that Carolina has 9 additions overall to this roster. You look at who was on the team last year. It was Seth Trimble. That entire junior class is new. Bogavac, and then Evans, Stevenson, Young, and Vesar all come from the NCAA Division I ranks. And then you've got James Brown, who was part of the Tar Heels, Zayden High, who was not last year, Jonathan Brown from West Virginia, and then the 3 incoming freshmen. So that's 1, 2, 3 freshmen, 1 sophomore, and then another sophomore that didn't play last year but was part of the team, and then the 5 person junior class. And so of the 12 on the roster right now, 10 of them did not play on this team last year. 9 of them were not part of this program. It's crazy stuff. Now, my expectation, and again, I've been saying this for a while, is that Carolina was looking, and again, not just my expectation, but from talking to people, is that Carolina was looking to add this one final piece. And that doesn't mean they won't add anyone else to their roster. But what I'm saying is this wraps up the starter level roster construction. Carolina has a couple scholarships to play with. Some people have said, oh, we got 15. Let's go get a bunch of scholarship level players. No. There won't be playing time. Dudes will get frustrated. And that's not what you're trying to do. So Carolina might add more pieces, but it would be like break in case of emergency type players, or walk on level players, that kind of thing. Maybe somebody with some near scholarship level skill, but not starter level player. Carolina is done there. Now let's talk about my expectation for the starting lineup at this point. The Bogavac thing, basically for me, he will slot in as the 3. I believe somebody today had said they look at him as maybe the 6th man. Potentially so. I think ultimately what I feel confident and comfortable about is the bookends, Kyan Evans at the 1, Henry Vasar at the 5, Caleb Wilson at the 4. I'm expecting Seth Trimble to start at the 2. And then I think, there will be some competition at the 3, but I think Bogavac will win out over like a Jonathan Powell or a Jaron Stevenson. The interesting thing is going to be Jaron Stevenson competing with Caleb Wilson at the 4. I think Wilson wins that out. But again, Carolina has a lot of depth and a lot of possibility. From a depth chart standpoint, you think about, you got Kine Evans and Seth Trimble as your starters, but then behind them, you've got Isaiah Dennis and Derek Dixon and Jaden Young. You've got Jonathan Powell that could play the 2 or the 3. And again, Bogavac could probably play a big 2 if Carolina wants to go big. And then in the front court, you've got Caleb Wilson, you've got Henry Vasar, you've got Jaron Stevenson that could play 3, 4, or a small ball 5. You got Zayden High that could play 4 small ball 5. James Brown, really just a 5, but can give some minutes there. And so you've got, like last year, one of the big concerns was roster construction. It didn't work. It just didn't all fit properly. And there was the issues at the 5 where Carolinas didn't have what they needed. Now you look at this roster, and with just this last edition of Bogavac, I feel infinitely better about it. Probably like it A- for the roster. But man, there is starting, there is shooting, there is size, there is this team to me projects to be a really talented defensive team. Like, I just feel infinitely better about this roster as I look at it. If you get foul trouble, you got guys behind guys. And that is part of the hallmark of what makes the best teams right now too. I talked about that year-to-year longevity or, having holdovers from the year before. Another part of it is depth. In the NIL era, and in the portal era, it's so difficult. Yes, you can get a starting 5, the guys that want the minutes, but getting guys behind them that are willing to come off the bench, maybe play starters level-ish minutes, but not start, that's tough. And so when you look at this and you've got 6, 7 guys that could potentially be starters for Carolina, that's great, because really what you want to get down to is an 8-man rotation. That's what I'm always looking for. And I think that Carolina has that and has it in spades. So how am I feeling? I'm feeling very good about this. Thank you very much. Now, we do have a lot of comments. I want to go see if there's any that we want to answer here on the show. There might not be, but I just want to take those. And so we're going to wrap and go get ready for the baseball game here in just a second. But we're going to take one more break, and then we'll go to the comments section. I'm going to leave the scholarship chart up as we talk. Todd Pegram, what's up? Todd says, I can honestly see Luka being the main guy on offense. There is a world where that is a strong reality. I'm curious to see, because the pieces fit in a lot of interesting ways. I think what I can go so far as to say is that there will be games when Bogavac is the leading scorer. I think there will be games, though, too, where Kine Evans is the leading scorer, or Seth Trimble, or Henry Vasar. And I think that's part of what encourages me about what I was just talking about the fulfillment of this roster, is that you look at last year and you shut down RJ, who's it going to be? And there was guys that could step up and do it, Seth at times, etc. Ian, obviously, right? But with this one, it's not just about the backcourt and it's like, oh man, can the front court figure it out? No. There's capability all across the board here. So when we get to next offseason and we look back at the 25-26 season, will Luka Bogavac have led Carolina in scoring from a points per game standpoint? I think it's a strong possibility. But the fact that it could be him, it could be Vasar, it could be Evans, it could be Trimble, I am encouraged by that. So I love Todd's point here, and I like that. Great day to be a Tar Heel says, get back Van Allen Lubin, and we should be done and ready for the season. Man, I would love it, but I just don't think it's going to happen right now. We've seen some crystal balls to NC State, but that's by a guy that is an NC State guy. But, he could be the second Carolina to NC State player, Van Allen Lubin. But I think if Carolina is going to get anybody else, it might be similar to what we've had in the past couple years with some guys that are like kind of in case of emergency 5s, right? We've had that each of the past 2 seasons. And so that's like with Ty Claude, for example, this past year, that might be what it is. I would love to have Van Allen Lubin back, because man, what he would bring backing up Henry Vassar, I think would be great. It just does not seem like right now it's going to happen, unfortunately. Nintendo, our guy Connor, what's up, Connor, says, just watch some Luka highlights. That's absolutely right. And you'll see how lethal, that's a great word to put on it, Connor, how lethal he can be for Carolina. The ACC better be on watch. Let me say this. This is a great point, that last statement. I saw a Duke fan today, like on the Jonathan Gavoni tweet. I just quote tweeted it and said, boom. And a Duke fan commented on mine and said, basically like, ha ha ha, who's this kind of thing. And like Dame Sarr, I would have loved to have gotten him, that committed to Duke after Cedric Coward decided to stay in the draft. But for what Carolina needs, I believe that Bogavac is actually a better fit for this Carolina roster than would be Dame Sarr. I would love to have Dame Sarr, but I think Bogavac actually lifts our ceiling more based on what Carolina needs. He's the better shooter, and that to me does a lot of it. Yes, Sarr is bigger, maybe a more athletic slasher kind of guy, but for what Carolina needed, this works so well. And that's just something we always got to keep in mind. It's not just about like, who is the single best player? It's like, who's the right player with the right skill set for what we need and what we're doing. So that's something we're looking at there. Let's continue to work here. Ooh, Nintendo, let's get another one from here. There's an argument to be made that Luka will ultimately be a better fit than Andre, meaning Andre Stojakovic. And I can hear that. What's funny is I was thinking about that. And, you know, again, same with Sarr. I would have loved to have had Andre Stojakovic, who ultimately committed to Illinois, part of that Eastern Bloc. But again, with capability, Stojakovic has shot 32.7%, I think, in his first year, and 31% last year. Let me pull it up really quick. 32.7 his freshman year at Stanford, 31.8 last year at Cal. We got a proven dude, 40% from 3 against professionals is what Bogavac is bringing. And so I can get behind that, Nintendo. I hear you for that. Matthew Kataba, I've made all of these jokes and I love you bringing it. He says UNC gaining a basketball player named Luka from Balkan area Europe seems like a good plan. LOL. Yeah. Hey, Mavericks, keep your hands off of our Luka. You too, Lakers, because he's coming our way. I know it's spelled with a K, and right, Luka, like Luka is with a C, I believe, if I'm thinking correctly. So anyway, great call, Kataba. I love it, and bring on all the Luka jokes. He's ours. All right. Anything else? Nintendo asks, do you think Luka slots in as the default starter at 3? That's a good way to ask it. I think he's most likely to start, but I could see Jonathan Powell competing for that spot. That's where I'm at. And that's what I was trying to say earlier. I agree with that. I do not think he is the default starter at the 3, because I think that Coach Davis, similar to Coach Williams, similar to Coach Smith, is not going to guarantee anyone a starting spot. Now, we can wage discussion about if that's wise or not in this day and age. But I do think that while he's not the default, again, I think that was a great way to ask it. I do think he is the one that wins out the spot. Would it surprise me if somebody else did, Jonathan Powell or Jaren? No, not at all. Because those guys are going to come in and get starters minutes eventually anyway. But I do think it is Luka, and so that would be my answer to that. Matthew Kataba with another one says, Isaac, what's your preferred closing lineup? This is great. I'm going to have to think about it because I actually haven't yet. I know we tend to focus on the starting lineup, but who is your bucket squad who can take care of business late in the game? That's a great way to ask it. And as part of every offseason, I try to say, you know, we focus so hard on the starters, and we talked about that. But ultimately, it's less about who starts the game and more about who closes the game. In terms of taking care of business late, I think some of it depends on game script and what Carolina is trying to do, right? Like if it's the type of game, as I was saying earlier, where Carolina is having to step to the free throw line to close it out there, I want Kyan Evans, I want Bogavac, and I want Seth Trimble, all of whom were 80% or greater free throw shooters last year. Seth doesn't have the track record that the other two guys do. Seth, took a massive leap his junior year. And so ultimately, you want Kyan with the ball in his hands, but I trust all three of those guys. And so I would want those three, probably Caleb Wilson, assuming that he does what he's been doing. And what is I can't remember Jaren's free throw percentage. I need to look that up here in real time. Stay with me, everybody. Jaren Stevenson last year shot 59.7% gross. So no, we don't want Jaren in the closing. So it's probably Vesar, right? And if we're switching offense and defense, that might all be part of it too. But Matthew, my gut reaction is that my starting five is actually probably my closing five this year as well. I don't know that that's the case every year, but at least for right now, I do believe it is. That's a great question. I love that you asked it. All right, guys, much more comments and things to get to in the coming weeks. Let me remind you all, if you've not been with us, that I am actually leaving, as I said off the top of the show, for vacation tomorrow. And so I have pre-recorded all of next week's shows. But now what I got to go do is figure out a way to drop a disclaimer into them. Like, for example, on Tuesday's show with Coach Robinson, the first segment is all about, do we just have to maybe accept that we're done and we're not going to get anybody? Like, should we wrestle with that? So I might just have to cut that segment. I might just put another disclaimer at the beginning of it. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm going to go figure all that out. So again, I'm so glad that Luka committed today. And I want to thank you all for being with me, even though I had to come late, just getting all this stuff ready to be gone. As a reminder, we are 26 minutes from first pitch of Carolina's baseball game against Oklahoma. Again, it is a critical game because you don't want to go to the losers bracket where you'd have to play 3 times to make the super regionals. And so really, really need to win that game tonight. When it's over, we will go live again. So don't go too far. We'll be right back here on YouTube later on. I want to thank you all for being here with me. Remind you, if you're not subscribed to the show on video and audio, now's the time to do it. If you've not joined the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there, man. It's a great group of hundreds of Tar Heels fans hanging out, talking Carolina sports, Carolina whatever, and just life stuff all the time. It's super fun. It's a great community. We'd love to have you join it. If you want to go even deeper with the show, get personalized one-on-one communication with me, other perks as well, join the Locked on Tar Heels Insider program. That link is also in the show notes. You guys, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. I don't know about you, but now I am officially geeked about the 25-26 basketball season. It's do or die. We got to make it happen. We'll talk again later tonight after the baseball game, but until then, peace.